G'day legends, I hope that you're doing really well, having a great Friday or Saturday morning, depending in the world of where you are. Now we have more news about these tanks and more destroyed vehicles we've seen come into the fold. So we spoke about the offensive, and I believe that the offensive was really on once we saw more of these modern vehicles come in. Now something I will say is we're getting very, very one-sided news at the moment, and we will talk about that and the fallout and effects that can actually have in a second. But we're going to go over this and have a bit more of a talk and talk about some intel that I've got as well. So basically the photos that came out yesterday were of these vehicles here and saying that this was a Leopard 2 in here. And we commented that how is the camera footage so poor? Well, we now have more zoomed in images around that region. We're just going to go over what has been happening in here. So this is the same photograph. This isn't different killed vehicles. These are the same. If you line up this Bradley, this Leopard 2A6, the one behind it, these are the same photograph, but just from a better angle with a better camera. So confirming that it is a Leopard 2A6, which isn't the most modern variant of a Leopard, but it is definitely the most modern variant that Ukraine has in its arsenal. So these are the vehicles here, and some of the interesting things too, you can see in this BMP2 here, this has then a mine sweeping like rake on the front of it too, because it says these were caught out by mines, but then we also know that these then were shelled by artillery further on. And here's another photograph there without those. And then we have down the road further, more Bradleys and Max Pro vehicles here. That's the MRAPs, as I would call them. And then we have as well from Oryx. And Oryx as well, they're, I believe, the most reliable source on what actually has been destroyed, because they have photo evidence with all of it. And this goes for Ukraine and Russia as well, and tracks the Russian losses and the Ukrainian losses. So this one says 3 Leopard 2A6, 1 destroyed, 2 abandoned, 4 M2 Bradleys that are abandoned, 1 VAB, APC and an Oshkosh, and as well tonight including 6 more M2 Bradleys going onto the list. So we're talking 10 Bradleys and 3 2A6s, but we also know that Oryx, I don't know if I've got the screenshot here, no I don't, but Oryx also confirmed that there was a Leopard 2A4. So we are talking 4 Leopards. So this is the front photo as well, that then lines up with this here, if that makes sense. So this is this vehicle, and many saying these are different, but that's just where it lines up. Now this is one of the other Leopards here as well, a Leopard 2A6, and this one has been completely destroyed. Now many have said that these could be recoverable as well, and let's talk about that. So we have this video here that is showing that a track has been blown off a Leopard from here, and you can see that this is a Leopard from side on. And then another video here showing track put back onto the vehicle. Now, could this be separate vehicles? Absolutely. Like, there's nothing that's showing that this and this are the same vehicle, but that is how it's being reported. People are saying that then they will go and recover them with recovery vehicles too. So that did then occur, and then we have this. So this is the original photograph we saw, which was this one, and then we have this one at the bottom here that said then another amount of M2 Bradleys came in to retrieve these vehicles, and then also consequently then suffered the same fate, and that there was another then 5 Bradleys lost in this position from both the mining and shelling. And if you look on my Telegram, quick plug there, you will see that then these vehicles were being shelled. Now, firstly, this photograph came across my feed, and then I was like, this could be photoshopped, because I could easily, I'm crap at Photoshop, but I could easily Photoshop myself in this, of a Russian soldier in front of these vehicles here, because people saying they're going to go and recover them. And then this video, came out here, and this isn't translated, but is in front of where these are too here. So you can see this shell hole that they're in, but only a few hundred feet away from where they are. So they could be then recovered by a Rush, but we know that field is mined to shit. I'm going to talk a bit more about those, but I first want to go over the intel that I was sent from a source here as well. So this is the safe to air version. So we know the campaign, but this is what said that can come out that doesn't have any sick breaches or is doxing anyone out. So broadly, as I stated before, the Volgograd feint and the initial mini Bakhmut offensive, to a far lesser extent, designed to draw forces away, has somewhat worked. However, Currently, attacks in the south are not the main offensive and have largely stalled, much as the failed offensive around Bakhmut did. Russian forces have reinforced the southern sector and counterattacked with tank reserves. Again, while Russian artillery has been degraded and Russian forces' tank reserves have not been defeated, Ukraine also lacks necessary combat air power to also support any ground offensive due to Western virtue signalling. The southern and northern Bakhmut tactical salient under groups have made some progresses due to fewer issues with corruption and better tactical proficiency of the units involved. The main offensive may begin apparently in two different operational directions. Ukraine, much like Wagner previously, is slow trying to grind forward. This will slowly deplete Ukraine's combat power if an operational breakthrough cannot be achieved soon. Continuing. This is the result of Western military corruption, which includes failures to NATO equipment and doctrine and lack of accountability for that equipment. With a few exemptions, general tactical and operational strategic incompetence by the Ukrainian armed forces, which stem from the failures of Western training teams in addition to the lack of accountability mechanisms. In short, I hope I'm wrong, but a lot of people, in my view, are about to die, and a stalemate would be terrible for Ukraine and the free world. Talking about the lack of accountability from the NATO force actually supplying this equipment as well. Some of the training, we know the training wasn't that long, and I've spoken about this in length, that training's become like train just to use an armoured vehicle. Afternoon. Training to just, do some stuff, a couple of months. But to be fully proficient, competent in that can take years and years. Crew commanders of tanks, you don't just become a crew commander. That takes a long process, and they're going into the most demanding environment we have seen for modern tanks ever, and they've had a few weeks, few months of training on these, and talks about how badly it could go for the Western world and Ukraine. This was also sent from another contact. We lost a few Leopard tanks due to incompetent people and the commanders, and these are from two separate contacts there. What I do want to say is that this is still a very small percent of the vehicles, and some will say at about 96% are still remaining. There's only 4% that were killed, but that was 4% in an afternoon. So from Oryx's numbers, we're talking about 10 Bradleys. Ukraine have got about 100 Bradleys, and people are pointing out that they would run out of Bradleys in 10 days if continuing at this. But we do know that to create a breakthrough, you're going to sustain huge losses. But from the footage, and this is a fair enough argument from people, as saying that they're moving across open minefields with artillery, with no air support, and that is very true. That is why we've seen these vehicles get hit by mines, artillery, things like this, things that we know Russia has, at least in numbers, the numerical advantage in that region as well. We're going to look over some maps of where some of this is, but we do know that Western vehicles were going to be lost, and we do know that offensive actions, you're never just going to roll over the top of things, and that there is no such thing as a Wunderwaffe, being a wonder weapon. The Germans found this out the hard way. People were talking up that these Leopards were undefeatable, that they would be the Wunderwaffe. And we just know that none of this is. Whether it is a T-60, a T-90, a Leopard, an Abrams, whatever, you run over an AT mine, anti-tank mine, that is a bad day. That is taking it out. Yes, it increases your survivability of the crew, but you drop track, you're getting recovered from all the armchair generals like me. But, this grouping is one of the things you do not want to do, that these needed to move down cleared areas from mines. But how do you clear those? Well, that's another question to be asked. It's incredibly difficult with this, and now we know that there are many vehicles lost, and some could be recovered from there. And here's another Leopard as well in here. And the big problem with Ukraine's silence campaign is that then the Russian narratives and these things will rise to the top, and no one really to have anything to rebut that of like, yes, we lost these 3 tanks and these 5 Bradleys, but we made it all the way to here because nothing's coming out. The informational space is absolutely in Russia's court. And a post today read, if the Ukrainians had images of massive Russian casualties, they would already be circulating. The thing Ukraine cannot afford is to lose the communication battle, talking about the informational space. And Ukraine, through this entire conflict, has absolutely dominated the informational warfare space. But with the silence, this can actually be counterproductive in a way, because now everything everyone's relying on is Russian stuff, and the narrative can be sold however, because there's nothing proven to go back on it. So if you were just someone like looking into this, you could just go, oh, well, all the tanks have been wiped out, this is useless, what are we ever doing? And we know that many vehicles were going to be lost in this, and that this isn't the end of the offensive. It's probably just the absolute very beginning. There's still 96% left, and the West still has a lot of stuff to go, and we haven't even seen the Abrams and things like this rolling in. We haven't even seen any challenges coming into the fold. So we know that's the start. We know that this isn't just throw everything out the window from here, but it definitely is a trip on the start line, that it hasn't made the best first impression of these vehicles, or the capability and the training from there. It absolutely isn't. And I think that the big thing on this information space is there's nothing then even countering that. We're even seeing a lot of Ukrainian groups, a lot of even the NAFO bots pointing out what the hell is going on. How are these all bunched up in this position? And that happened from there. So it's just, combat is going to have losses. It is difficult, but that is just what it is. Now, we don't have a deep state map update from today, but nothing will probably show any movement anyway. But here we have Ukraine, the centre, the capital of Kyiv. The red areas occupied by 22, purple since 14. We have Romania, Poland, Belarus, and Russia around here. And the main areas we're going to talk about, we're going to look at some other maps. We're going to talk in and around here, which is Bakhmut, and then this is the south. This is Zaporizhia here, and this is the Zaporizhia region. So this borderline through here and down here is the Zaporizhia region. So we're going to talk a lot about Kyiv, Mariupol, this area here as well. So we're talking as well in Novodorivka and Novodonetsky, in and around. So we're going to look at some other maps, and these maps are hard to come about. So let's have a look at some footage that was geolocated here, and this was off like a 360 camera on a soldier's back. I'm not going to show this because I don't know, I've been demonetized for everything recently. So this was some cool footage of a Ukrainian soldier's back, and that was geolocated here. So we do know that there are Ukrainian armed forces in Lubovki here. So that is very interesting from there. Now, where we're going to go across to is in Robotyny. So this is Robotyny here, and where we're going to go is Kyiv. We'll go due south of Kyiv, and here we look at Robotyny from here. Now, we have a few different maps. So this one here is from Syriac Maps. So what are we seeing? So what we see is that they said there was a major advance push down to Robotyny. Now, where we're going to have a look and see what is going on. And you guys maybe can't even see this, but we see that this road bend around, and this bend is right here. So this is down to here. So it is saying that this area was cleared out from here, but Deep State is not showing that. Let's have a look on then the ISW, and ISW is showing fairly similar. So you see this turn, and then it's straightened back to a due south. So you see the turn to the east and then to the south. So this dogleg, and this is very, very similar to what it is then showing. But it also said that there was a pushback in this region near Stopove as well. So you can see that these are slightly different. This is Kyiv here, and let's zoom in. So we've got these bend and down. So these are fairly similar. And this is from Rybar, Russian sources here. And the Robotyny hasn't fallen yet, but there is fighting on the outskirt, and a number of vehicles and stuff have been attacking in that region. But as well, like I say, the maps, that is just what we are working off. Now, we do have a recent war mapper, map 2, showing where the pushes are. So this is where we've got, so we have this Robotyny bit here we're speaking about, so Kyiv. Now in the darker red bits, this is where we have the defensive works built up as well. And then we have Novodonetsky and Novodorivka, where we spoke of, and Mariupol. And these are the grey zone areas of fighting. And we know that Novodonetsky, this whole region, is under the grey zone. A lot of fighting in around there too. But this is just the first line of defensives. The real defensives build up a lot further back, as we can see, these multi-layers of defense. So you break through here, you've still got 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, depending where you're going down to Tokmak, because they're saying that Tokmak and Pohoi needs to be taken as well to then launch further from there. So you've still got a lot of lines of heavy defensive work, to get through from there. Same as in this Novodonetsky region, pushing south, trying to go down to like Mariupol. You're still going to have to go through where these major works are, and we could see that Russia do a delaying force, moving rearwards and mining everything on their way out from there. So we definitely haven't seen a hit onto those major defensive works, but as the intel I got across sent, that we haven't really seen the absolute head yet of the big major offensive, that this is still in the first little part of this, but that the offensive has definitely started. So the maps are basically impossible to look at because nothing's changing, and the maps are all over the place as well with what is actually going on. You're taking from different sources, and just things aren't moving. And realistically as well, I do it myself, but there's no really decent geolocations coming out of fighting, because just because you've seen an artillery system blown up, well, artillery is way behind the line. So it's very difficult to talk about what is actually what is where. And I'll try and do this for you guys as much as I can, but waiting for geolocations, waiting for maps to move is difficult. I mentioned it yesterday, but the video was already dragging on way too long, that we have another part of this hour-long interview with Prigozhin speaking about what's going on in the Belgrade region, as well as some other interesting bits about the offensive. So we're going to talk about this for basically till the end of the video. But if you're ditching now because you only wanted the updates, thank you for sticking around. I do really appreciate it. But this might be fun. Stick around. I'm talking about in Belgrade and the position across the border. Now we're just going to skip forward through a lot of this. If you'd like to watch this full thing will be on my Telegram, and there are a lot of photos in this I can't show you as well, so the screen will be black at the moment. But he goes, I'm not even talking about a pile of all sorts of other factors. The evidence is complete. I'm sorry, total BS. A hoax, which the MOD talks about that they were repelled. And you guys can't see this, but in the photograph, this was the photograph we got from that region of really the initial crossing of said to be the bodies of the fighters. And Prigozhin himself is calling this out, saying that this was a hoax, this is BS, that people don't fall like that this is just made up nonsense to try and get the message across. And then he goes next, the uneducated, ill-prepared, cowardly governor of Belgrade, who yesterday could have detached his arse and gone to take back the prisoners. I'm absolutely certain, based on the Russian Volunteer Corps' behaviour, that they would not have killed him. So what is this? Well, we talked about this a couple of videos ago, that they had a Russian prisoner, and a couple of Russian prisoners, and wanted to swap them just for a talk with the governor of Belgrade. So that if he went to this area, then they would have got the prisoners back and would have talked to him. And Prigozhin here is saying that then he believed that he would not have been killed if he actually just went to that, but would have shown a lot and got then the prisoners back. He announced that shotguns have been distributed to everyone. You shithead, have you ever faced an assault rifle or a machine gun with a shotgun? And here he's talking about the combat capabilities, difference between an assault rifle and just something like a shotgun, especially of the training as well. So here he's talking about the leadership in the Russian defence, because Shoigu to Gerasimov too. The murder of a certain number of Russian citizens. Our statute is from 2 or more. Well, clearly 2 or more is approaching 50,000 people. What he's actually talking about is the so far failure of this was absolutely due to their F-ups. Now, did you even prepare for this war? Did you even hold the meetings? Did you take any action to determine whether the army is actually ready for this? Did you stockpile munitions? And these are all issues that we have seen throughout this conflict. Now they need to accept that they screwed up and they're a total arse, and that they need to then declare martial law to mobilise more people. Then Prigozhin many times say that he wants justice brought to these leaders, and as well as that there are territories which they recognise as Russian Federation that have been, either taken back or in the area of actually Russian Federation now still being held by the RVC. The enemy is still moving through Belgrade into Russia as well. Now, this is where he talks about then nuclear weapons. I think their brains, that criminal idea is itching at them. If we drop a nuclear bomb on foreign government, then they'll drop the same ones on us. And he brings up something very interesting here, talking about these weapons. So the Kremlin won't drop them on other countries. There was a joke in the army that the 2 safest places right now are the headquarters in Rostov, the general staff, and the HQ in Moscow, where Shoigu is. That the enemy will never strike there because they're the 2 holy sites, because if those 2 are eliminated, that it may turn out that we would win the war. And this is talking about then nuclear strikes. But this where Prigozhin brings up a very interesting bit here, that I'm afraid they'll have a foul thought to drop a nuclear bomb on their own territory, and whether that's why they are retreating from the Belgrade region, allowing them to advance. Now, sort of what the hell is he on about here? Now, he's saying it's scary to drop it on foreign land, so we drop it on our own and show some handsome and mentally ill we are. Look around, the armed forces of Ukraine will be at some village and we're pretending to test a tactical nuclear weapon. So what he's saying is if Russia drop a nuke on Ukraine or any other foreign country, then everything goes to shit. But if they drop one within their own territory, just that's occupied by Ukrainian forces, do they get the effect, and could these leaders here actually do, as he describes, that sick act of dropping it as a test in their own region. And I thought that was very interesting of him talking about this, continuing talking about that Belgrade region, which has been under occupation by Ukrainian-backed forces, that it seems to be fighting for 10 people, though they should be fighting for it too. In Shebekino, 40,000 people live here, and this was in a number of letters written to Prigozhin to try and get Wagner PMC to move in and then launch an offensive back across where there has been occupation. We went to Bakhmut, where less people lived. The Ukrainians evacuated everyone. The AFU fought bravely with us. 40,000 people live in Shebekino, and no one gives a damn, calling out their own government from there. Now, he's talking about then movements of Wagner PMC, where withdrawing, of course, some time is needed. And second, we won't be able to get there because they will block us. Everyone who can and will not allow Wagner PMC to reach Belgrade region. And we know that when Wagner was trying to pull out of Bakhmut, that he claimed then the roads were mined on the way out. Because we're talking about the government in Belgrade region, that the people are insolently deceiving, saying that all is more or less okay in that region. They wanted to blockade and destroy us in Bakhmut, and that's why those explosives were there on our road, the mines that we just spoke about. Of course, in Belgrade region, it's scary that Wagner PMC might come there. It's very close from Belgrade region into Rubliovka. What if we go asking about our munitions from the Russian MOD HQ, and people have spoken about this before, and there's been videos from Wagner PMC troops even saying that we're going to come and get our own munitions as well, launching, as some are saying, almost a small civil war, if that then the offensive isn't done to push those Ukrainian-backed troops out of Belgrade, that the situation will continue to deteriorate, that they must go and then defend their land. But if then Wagner do go, he says, we demand that Shoigu, the chief of defence, also moves to Belgrade. If we're going to die, we will die together. So we do know that Prigozhin is not a fan of Shoigu, and both ways, I think that's mutual. Now, there was rumour that Shoigu put out an arrest warrant for Prigozhin, but that was only being reported by Ukrainian side, and I couldn't find any sources for that. And right at the end here, we won't let Shoigu's daughters and sons-in-law to sit around and they're there with Vaseline while Belgrade's ordinary grandmas and children die like dogs. So, very interesting again of Prigozhin's thoughts towards what is happening off of those cross-border operations. But again, the cross-border operation, is it just to then draw forces, which seems like the most likely thing? And if they can then draw the Wagner PMC, in the tens of thousands to that region, or Kadyrov or whatever around, that is just less forces that could be on the defensive as well. So that is realistically the reason that they have gone across from there. Legends, I know this one might have been a little bit all over the place. It's really struggling just getting information. I've been looking at this all day and really got nowhere with it. But if you made it through, if you stuck with me, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to support me, links below, but never feel obliged. Look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.